Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing BonifaceVIII, the eighth, I think that is. Okay, he plays d4, and what do we want to play? I'm going to play g6 against him. Boniface. Looking at their stats, they have a peak rating of 22-15, a very good win-to-loss record at the moment. 43 wins, 8 losses, 7 draws. Pretty new account. 5-minute rating of 22-11. All right, bishop g7. So if knight c3, shall we go for c5, d5, bishop takes c3, the Jinji Indian? We won't have to make that decision. Knight f3 has been played instead. Okay, so against this we can play c5, and then after d5 maybe take it into a Benko with b5. It's not a bad option. I could play knight f6 and try to go for a Grunfeld. Let's play c5 though. Could also have played b6 and tried to play a double fianchetto, but let's do it this way. The move order is a little strange, but the same principles are going to apply. He plays e4. I don't want to take it right away because I want to see if I can get him to move his bishop first. I prefer that. Let's just play d6. He's playing pretty quick, seems confident. We'll play knight f6. I mean, arguably this is like a slightly inferior version of the mainline Benko for black, simply because, like, normally in order to achieve e4, white has to play e4 when black's bishop is already on a6, and I can play bishop takes f1. So maybe my move order is a bit suboptimal, but we'll see. I don't think it's like terrible for me or anything. Okay, he finally commits the bishop. Now, I can take the pawn if I want. This is a pretty good time to take it, since he would have to take back with the bishop. Taking with the knight would lose the e4 pawn. So let's do that. Bishop takes b5 is played. I turned down the volume a little bit, so hopefully that is reflected in the recording. A couple users were able to tell me how to turn down the program volume in ICC, since there's no like option specifically in ICC to do that. All right, so now I want to figure out how best to develop my minor pieces. The b4 square is weak. It might be nice to send my knight into that square. I could also try to play bishop a6 and swap the bishops. Maybe I'll do that. Let's do that. I feel like if I can get rid of the light square bishop, that helps me out a little bit. Plays bishop d2. Idea of that is that if I take on b5, he can take back with a pawn. That's what he's planning. And that's a little annoying. Because then it'd be hard to get rid of that b pawn. There's not a good way to execute a trade or anything. Yeah, this could be a bit irritating, how to generate play from here. Okay, I'm just going to bring this out. If castles, I might play knight e8 and try to bring the knight to c7. Let's play it that way. Rook b1. Maybe playing directly for b4. This player is very quick. Maybe now I can take on b5. And if a takes, at least I can blockade that pawn. Might not be bad timing on that. Okay, let's trade. I think my knight coming to c7 does help. I mean, that means I can apply more pressure to the b5 pawn if he does indeed take with the pawn. Takes the knight instead. Okay, so knight c7 could result in a knight trade. I could try to play knight b6, but they'll probably play b3. I probably should play knight to c7 and go for the trade, though, because otherwise that knight on b5 is going to be a pest. So let's do that and pre-move this capture. He plays b4 straight away, so he's not wasting any time trying to establish this a pawn as a force. Now, after a trade, because I probably will trade, I do get c5 for my knight, which helps. I probably have to take it, too. I don't think I have much of a choice there. Bet he takes with the rook. Could take with the bishop, I suppose. Somehow rook seems like it's going to be coming, though. I don't know, actually. Remains to be seen. Yeah, I wouldn't repeat this move order in retrospect. I can tell you that already 16 moves into the game. It's just not challenging enough. I'll try to compare it to the line that usually happens in the Benko. He does take with the rook. Okay, so here I can establish that knight on c5 if I want. He can play rook c4, perhaps. It's a nice square for the rook. I want to win the a-pawn, clearly. Rook f8 is a move. I have a good bishop, but I can't really put it to use because there's nothing on this diagonal anymore. If rook f8, I feel like he's going to play queen b1. Let's look at knight c5 again. So knight c5, rook c4, queen d7, a5. How do I win this pawn? Maybe rook fb8 then? Then I have an idea of knight b3. Let's try that. Let's give that a shot. I'm just not sure where to put this rook yet. And that was the other alternative, like playing rook fc8 or maybe even rook fb8. But somehow this knight is probably going to end up on c5 no matter what. So I feel like I should play it right away and then wait and see how white replies before figuring out where this rook should go. We're pretty far into the middle game. This can happen in the Benko sometimes. You get to like a middle game position that's fairly simplified, and you get there quickly too. So queen c2, pinning my knight. What if I just play queen d7 now? How does he defend the a-pawn? Because note that rook a1 is not possible due to bishop takes a1. So if I just play this move, what does he have in store? Nothing obvious that I see. Queen d7. Rook b5, I can just take it. There's nothing there. Yeah, if a5, just rook takes a5. Looks like I can win that pawn back. Unless I've miscalculated. We'll see. But I don't think so. I think he maybe just didn't see this move. I get out of the pin and I add another attacker to a4 at the same time. And his queen and his rook are the only things capable of defending that pawn, so he's already stretched thin. Well, if we manage to win the a-pawn, we're going to be left with a position with 5 pawns each. He has a little bit more space, but extremely drawish position. Kind of depends how it shakes out. I mean, I could perhaps harbor some hopes of being better, assuming like my knight gets to stay on c5 and this pawn on e4 remains weak. But it's a slim advantage, if anything. Almost certainly if I win the a-pawn, the game should be drawn with best play. And that's assuming I win the pawn. I mean, he might cook up something here to try to complicate, but off the top of my head, I'm not seeing much for him to do. e5 doesn't really do anything. I can't take the pawn because of my hanging knight on c5. I need the pawn on d6 to remain defending that, but I just take on a4. There's no like tactical shots with e6 that are going to give us any grief, I don't think. I mean, that might be worth calculating. Let's say e5, rook takes a4, e6, f takes e6, d takes e6. I can just play queen c6 there. I don't have to deflect either my queen or my knight to capture the pawn on e6. Yeah, I think that's sufficient. Maybe he could go knight d4 at that point, attacking the queen on c6. I could play bishop takes d4, but I don't even have to. I could play queen a6 then. And that e6 pawn might just be weak in the long run. So now he's pondering, trying to figure out what to do. Is there anything left he can play that will keep some element of pressure? Maybe rook fb1, intending rook takes a4, rook takes a4, and then, like, say queen takes a4, queen takes a4, knight takes a4, trying to invade down the b file. But it's only attacking my e pawn. I mean, I can pretty easily cover it with like rook e8 or bishop f6 or something. Also, I probably don't even have to allow that. Like if rook fb1, rook takes a4, I could take with the knight instead of the queen. Okay, so he's offering me a chance to play bishop takes d4. I might do that. Because I don't want this knight making an appearance on c6. That's a difficult knight to get rid of when it lands on that square. So parting with my dark square bishop is not ideal, but he's going to have a weakness on e4 still. And I think the position will be simplified enough where any disadvantage I might have on the dark squares is going to be easily defendable. Let me just see if I... Okay, so if I play rook takes a4, he can even jump in knight c6 right away. Yeah, I have a feeling that position's all right, but I like the clarity that bishop takes d4 offers. Bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, rook takes a4, rook takes a4, queen takes a4, queen takes a4, knight takes a4. Yeah, my knight's going to get back to c5 more than likely. I can always play f5 if I need to gain some space. Let's do that. Let's go down that road. Okay, so now I was intending to take with the queen. Yeah, let's do it. I think he's going to trade, because if he doesn't, he's probably just losing the e4 pawn. Okay. Now, white's back rank is a bit weak, but for the moment so is mine. Like bishop h6, and my rook is glued to the back rank. If knight c5, maybe bishop... Well, actually, knight c5, I'm hitting this pawn. But they can just play f3. I kind of like f5, trying to break up their structure. Seems like a good move. Or rook b8 right away. Just trying to like threaten a back rank thing if they play rook c7 immediately. But I think f5 could be better if I want to try to break up their pawns. So about f5, rook c7. A little bit of a tough call there. Maybe king f7, bishop g5, rook e8. Looks fine. Maybe e5 then. f5, rook c7. And if king f7, bishop g5, rook e8, e5. Idea being d takes e5, d6. Trying to use that pin on the 7th rank. So maybe in that case, maybe I should seal off their play with knight c5. Yeah, that might be the smarter thing to do. Let's do that. And we have 6.5 minutes remaining, so I think it makes sense to play a quicker move. Yeah, now this. If e5, I have knight d3. We can bear in mind. So I'm not too concerned about that. Point of e5 being to undermine the knight. Oh, and also I have knight b3 whenever I want it to. I didn't notice that till now, but that's a nice option too. Yeah, knight b3 would have just been like an immediate draw. Trade the knight for the bishop. Yeah, I think we're headed for a draw here. If I take, he takes. We take. Yeah, Looking very even. Can I keep any tension whatsoever? I don't really think so. Yeah, it might have been more accurate to play knight b3 on the previous move. Kind of thinking now. Because now after takes, bishop takes, d takes c5, he can play f takes e4, and then I have to get behind the pawn, and maybe like his pawns can cause me some trouble a little bit. Yeah, my last move might have been inaccurate. I still think it's a draw, but maybe he can press. Maybe I should go knight d3 now. Knight d3, rook c7. I take. He takes king f7. Still pretty much dead equal. Yeah, let's do that. So idea of taking here, not allowing bishop takes c5 on the next move. And I think he'll play rook c7. I suspect he'll go for activity. Interestingly, I could play f4 too. I wonder if f4 is a legit option. Or even like a move like rook b8 or rook a8, trying to back rank him. F4. I'm a little unstable though. I don't fully trust that move. And if rook b8 or rook a8, he'll play king f1, almost certainly. Okay, let's just take and keep it simple. Rook e8, rook b8, or king f7. Those are the candidates. Rook b8 just king f1. King f7, he's going to play bishop g5 is the issue. He ties me down a bit, like rook e8. Still, I think I should probably do this. Let's play it. If allowed, I guess I might play king f6 and try to deny his bishop the use of the g5 square. e7 is my only weakness. We have 3.5 minutes left, so I think it's enough time. But yeah, I wish I would have played knight b3 and truly evened up the position. Just traded my knight for his bishop. That was on move 23. Plays g3, okay. So if king f6, bishop d4 check. Maybe knight e5. Yeah, let's play knight e5. Then if bishop g5, I have knight f3 check. That would be a horrible blunder by him. I don't think my knight had anything to do on d3 anymore. So king g2, perhaps. King g2, rook b8 or a8. Bishop g5, I check on the back rank. He escapes to h3. I'm going to see if he's going to allow that, though. Maybe I should go here instead. Let's do that. I mean, if bishop g5, I can always change my mind and play rook back to e8. Just kind of curious, like, if he's going to let me play rook a2 check or not. Because with bishop g5, he's showing a willingness to allow rook a2. Problem is then, like, I can't get back to defend e7. So rook a2, king h3, knight into f3, bishop takes e7. There's almost a mating net. Almost. What if I check and he just goes like king f1? Then knight f3. Bishop takes e7. Looks like I should have some sort of perpetual, but maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, rook a2 check, king f1, knight f3, bishop takes e7. Knight takes h2, king e1, knight f3, king d1. Yeah, he's going to escape, is the problem. My d6 pawn might be lost. Let's just play it safe. It still seems incredibly difficult for him to win. I can start moving my knight around now. h3. Yeah, he might be trying to play g4. Let's just go h5. Gain some space. I can almost just play like king f7 back and forth, king f8, king f7. I can play knight f7 if I want. Let's just do this for a while, though. He can't go king d2 because of knight f3. Okay, now at least I can maybe bring my knight somewhere. I can play h4, stopping g5. It's probably a good move. But I can drop my knight back to f7. Let's go here. Maybe I can get my rook in doing something useful. Let's give it a check. Come over, attack that pawn.
Check.
I have only a minute remaining. It's fine, though. King f3 is probably close to forced. Then I can play rook d2. Looks like just a draw. I'll offer him a draw with my next move, maybe. Or we'll see. He can go check and then try to go after my e-pawn, though. That's a plan for him. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a plan. All right, that changes things a little bit. Let's go over here.
Check. Check.
So now I can check him around and try to win this g-pawn.
Check.
Because he doesn't have anywhere he can really go with his king that's safe to defend this pawn. So he might have to play g4 at some point. At least that's the way it looks to me.
Check. Check. Check.
All right, yeah, he claimed a draw. Okay, well, I'm happy with the result at the end because we were under a little bit of pressure, and I think I made a micro mistake by not playing knight to b3. I didn't notice that that move was possible. Okay, let's go back and take a look at it. So yeah, this move order, so compared to like a conventional Benko Gambit, which is reached after the following moves, and then take, and we're looking at the accepted line, take here. So the theory is, up until this point, now here, if white wants to advance their e-pawn, they have to agree to the bishop takes f1 trade, after which they cannot castle. It's going to take them a couple moves to secure their king, like typically g3, king, g2. So compared to the game, we got a position that was very similar to that, but he had already achieved e4, and my bishop wasn't on the a6 f1 diagonal. And I think that kind of hurts me a little bit. I'm going to start the engine up here. I think I pretty much only played this move order like in bullet and stuff, so it's probably not a great crossover for standard. And you can't really trust the engine too much this early on. Like, according to the engine, black is just down a pawn in the Benko Gambit, so it's not going to like black's position the vast majority of the time. But his development is a bit easier. And also, I had some troubles after I took on b5. Maybe bishop a6 is not the best move. Maybe I should have played knight a6 and tried to get the knight into b4, because that is a convenient outpost square. I wanted to do that in the game, but I wanted to exchange the bishops first and then try to get the knight in, because I didn't like that light square bishop for him. But more than likely, I should have played knight a6 directly. So bishop a6, he played bishop d2. That seems like a good move, and he played it quickly, connecting the queen and the rook. Knight bd7, castles. And then I went about this plan of knight e8 to c7. This is a typical regrouping in the Benko, trying to make the kingside knight relevant, helping out in the struggle on the queen side, and also opening the diagonal. Not sure about rook b1. He played that one pretty quick too. Yeah, like less than 10 seconds. But maybe he could have improved right around here. I think he's just purely trying to play for b4 and getting off this diagonal. It makes sense for him to vacate his major pieces from that diagonal. So knight c7, we traded. He gets b4 in. I took... Excuse me. For a second, the engine wanted me to play c4 from the looks of it. That's always a double-edged decision. Usually, if black has to play c4, that means something has gone wrong, because white has this tandem now. I mean, even if the computer likes it, I'm skeptical. I usually am pretty nervous to give them the A and the B pawns together. So I took. Unfortunately, like, this is kind of the reality for a big Benko Gambit player from time to time. You get into some positions in the accepted lines where, like, the best you can do is just try to win the A pawn back. And oftentimes, like, you'll have a good chance to do it. Like, here I had, I think, a good shot to win that pawn with my active pieces and few weaknesses, but it's almost like white's just playing for two results, either a win or a draw, whereas black is devoid of much play beyond that. So right here, I wonder if he can keep the pawn. The computer likes queen c2, really. It seems to think that I'm going to win the pawn back regardless. But what if he just plays like rook c4 and then tries to go a5? Queen d7, a5. Because this seems like a way you can attempt to keep the pawn. Rook f-b8. I guess knight b3 is coming, and that's one perk I have with the knight being on c5, and white still has to watch the pawn. But this at least would deserve attention, especially if this were like a tournament game. White would want to think longer about ways to hang on to that a-pawn, maybe in hopes of like offloading it later, but getting in something in return. Because I don't think he really got much for it in the game. He did force me to part with the dark square bishop. I think this is a good decision. And as I said, if the knight gets into c6, my experience has told me that black has trouble dealing with that knight. So I was happy to just get rid of it and then take here. So now we get to this endgame. The computer thinks white has a slight pull, like less than half a pawn, but that might be something he could work with. So it suggests rook a1, knight c5, bishop h6. Okay, trying to confine me to the back rank. I'd probably play something like rook b8 here. And then f3. Okay. Yeah, and if I play f5, I have a similar problem as I did in the game. It's like, I guess you could take here. This would be a little bit different, but if ever I come to the 7th rank, there's always this bishop g5 move that, like, drags my rook somewhere. I guess here I can play rook b7. Aha, that's a difference. In the game, I never really had that possibility because my knight wasn't on c5. So, yeah, this endgame is a little better for white because his bishop can restrict my king. He has more space. That's the main reason. And it just seems like he might be able to grind it if he is able to bring his king up and like start marching his pawns. But it should be a draw. There's no need to panic if you're black. So he played rook c1 instead, maybe weaker than rook a1 with tempo. I brought the knight back to c5, hitting the pawn. Yeah, and if I would have played knight b3 here, and let's say rook c2 and then just take his bishop, now we get to an endgame that, despite white's slight space advantage, this is a total draw. I mean, trading the minor pieces ensures the draw, basically. Like, I'd probably play h5 now, and then come up and plant my king here. h5 just to grab a little space, just so he can't bring his pawns up unopposed. Bring my king to f6. You know, he's going to bring his king up probably to e3. There's not much either of us can do. There could be some exchanges if we actually wanted to play this out. But it's interesting the fact that just that one trade like pretty much ensures the draw, whereas if the bishop stays on the board against the knight, white has winning chances. And that's because with the rook and the bishop working together, they can create mating threats and restrict us, and I have to watch my pawns much more, like especially this pawn, which can be double attacked by the bishop and the rook. Whereas if I get that trade in, there's no fear ever of a double attack. My king can like stride out confidently to f6 without fear of like the bishop doing something devastating. It's just equal. And right after I played f5, I realized I probably made a slight mistake. Because now bishop e3, like originally I thought this was no big deal, like I could take here. But he can take c5. I take back, and then just this move. And now he's threatening rook takes c5. And if I play rook f4, looking for rook takes c5, rook takes e4, he doesn't have to take it. He can play this. And I wasn't quite sure about this because he's going to push me back with g3 and maybe just win this pawn outright. I'd be really struggling to draw now. So I played knight d3, but I would have much preferred just to be able to take and like simplify and like again trade the bishop for the knight, and I missed that golden opportunity on the previous move. So rook c7, he took king f7. I was kind of expecting him to play bishop g5 right away, but he didn't. He played this. I brought my knight back. So for the moment, he can't do bishop g5 because of knight f3 check. So king here. Yeah, and rook a8 was like a semi-bluff of a move. I was just really curious if he would play bishop g5 and allow rook a2, but it's kind of just smoke and mirrors. You saw I just went right back with my rook anyways. I mean, the plus side is I don't really have much else to do. It's not like I can improve my position greatly when I'm pinned on the e7 pawn and I can't really advance these pawns. I guess I could play h5, but it doesn't do much. So it's either like move around with my knight or do something with this rook to try to threaten him, because likely this rook is going to get dragged back to e8 in the end anyways. I guess I could play knight g4. And then if bishop g5, what, knight f6 maybe? Yeah, and attack e4, king f3, rook b8. Okay, that would have helped. Yeah, that's a good square for the knight. Then there's no double attack on e7, and maybe I can go threaten stuff with the rook. Yeah, knight g4 looks like a better move than whatever I did, rook a8. He plays bishop g5. So if I come in here, I think he can just play king f1, but maybe king h3 is also good. But the basic problem for me is like, you know, even if I do something like this, he takes on e7, and yeah, I'm going to have like some temporarily threatening looking stuff, but I think his king is going to like wiggle free, and then I'm going to lose the d6 pawn at the end because he's threatening to take it with discovered check. So unless I like mate him or do something very devastating, I'm in trouble, probably losing. So that's why I put the rook back on e8. It's a little unpleasant. I mean, with 2 minutes, him having like 6.5, 7 minutes, I didn't think this would be that simple to draw. Because I have to avoid, like, you know, here I'm almost in Zugzwang. My rook can't move. None of my pawns can move. I can move my king, fortunately, to f8. Moving the knight like could be potentially dangerous. So it's nice that I do have this king f8 move. Yeah, and I thought it was unrealistic for him to really like bring his king around because, like, first of all, where's it gonna go? I mean, he can't approach c6. My knight covers that square. He can't come to the 8th rank. My rook covers that, and also it would open him up to checks and such. So I didn't think he was really going to do that. So if he has a win here, it's probably something pretty sophisticated. I mean, it would require a lot of accuracy. And I think the way he was playing, he didn't really find much. I must say, though, I overlooked this idea of rook c6 to e6, trying to win the e-pawn once he doubles my pawns. But nevertheless, it looks like my play was sufficient to draw. Yeah.
Check.
And I'm just in time to start checking him. If he could like go hide his, like, let's say the pawn is already on h4, that could be a problem because he could go hide his king on h3. He would escape my checks. But here, if he
Check.
wants to escape the checks, he has to go somewhere like very far away with his king, and I might win the g pawn and the h pawn, and he'll win my e pawn. That pawn's a goner, but you know, he definitely can't afford to lose the g and the h pawns. His pawns in the center are not strong enough. I still have my e7 pawn blocking them. So
Check.
yeah, this is a draw at this
Check.
point.
Check.
Too risky for him to try anything else. So, okay. I mean, in chess, you guys, you're going to have games like this where you never really have much in the way of winning chances for the entire game. I don't think my eval ever got above negative or positive, however you want to look at it. Like, white was always in the positive territory on the computer eval throughout that. So just getting a draw out of this was pretty good, especially from the position that we started with after he had played b4, rook takes b4. Like here, my objective is basically just to gain a draw. He's up a pawn. If we can neutralize that pawn, that's one thing. I mean, yeah, I'd look for winning chances in the unlikely event that white like overpresses or somehow I can like win the a pawn and then get at his e pawn. But you know, we're very happy just to play for equality there, and much of that was just due to the opening choice. Like I said, I think this move order was suboptimal for black, and my opponent's play kind of showed why. I think in the future, if I got into this, I'd probably settle for, after c5, d5, just a Benoni like d6, or maybe play knight f6, go for like a Grunfeld, play d5 next move, or even b6 and play for a double fianchetto, as I've been known to do every once in a while. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this game. I'll be back tomorrow with another standard game. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.